At America's SBDC Network, our mission is simple: to help businesses grow and succeed. Our consulting, training, and information services make it easier for businesses to reach their potential. Whether you're currently in operation or just starting out, America's SBDC Network has the right tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. Visit us online or contact your local office to get started on your path to success today.
Hello and welcome to the Grow Smart program. My name is Natalie Flores Gonzalez, and on behalf of the University of Houston, Texas Gulf Coast SBDC Network, I would like to thank you for taking the time to watch this recording. Your program facilitator today is Tim Fulton, owner of Small Business Matters. Before we begin, I want to make sure you know that the Small Business Development Center is here to help you either start a business or grow an existing one. We provide business advising, access to training, tools, and resources to help small businesses start, grow, expand, and succeed. The SBDC network comprises 14 centers covering 32 counties along the Texas Gulf Coast. Each center works with hundreds of businesses of all types and sizes every month on a variety of issues. Our team has the skills, expertise, and talent to help you take your business to the next level. Please feel free to contact Gina Matei or myself should you have any questions. We are here to assist you in whatever you might need. Also, be sure to visit our website at sbdc.uh.edu and subscribe. Once you subscribe, you'll be able to access over 90 free webinars and receive weekly updates on matters that matter to business owners. Thank you again for joining us during this recording and for participating in the Grow Smart program. We would also like to stress how important it is for you to attend each session live so you can participate in all of the exercises that Tim presents during the program. I will now turn it over to Tim. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Natalie. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. So today we're shifting gears. The last two sessions were the first module talking about strategic planning and growth strategies. Today we're shifting into module 2. We're going to be talking about marketing today. Any questions at all before we get started? Questions? So we'll start off with a couple quotes this morning. First quote comes from John Wooden, basketball coach at UCLA for many years. I think the winningest college basketball coach in history. Something he was famous for telling his players. He said, "The team that makes the most mistakes wins the most games." Wooden would encourage his players, these young college basketball players, that to make mistakes. It was okay to make mistakes when they were on the court. Okay to particularly aggressive mistakes, to make an extra pass, to take a shot maybe they hadn't taken before, to be aggressive on defense, to incur a foul from time to time. He told his players it was okay to make mistakes. Second quote comes from Thomas Watson, the founder of IBM, all the way back in the 1950s. Watson is famous for saying, "The way to succeed is to double your failure rate." The way to succeed is to double your failure rate. Imagine if you turned to your employees after this session and suggested to your employees that they should all try to double their failure rate. Make twice as many mistakes as you normally do. But again, Watson found that that's how people grow. That's how they get better, is being willing to experiment, be willing to make mistakes. Watson is famous. He had a young executive working for him, and that executive made a $10 million mistake. It was a big mistake. He called the young executive into his office and he said to the young man, he said, "Do you know why you're here?" Young executive thought for a moment and said, "Well, I'm assuming to be fired. I'm assuming to be fired." Watson said, Fire you? Of course not. I just spent $10 million on your education. Why would I fire you? That was his mindset. He invested in his people and he wanted them to be okay with making mistakes, experimenting, trying things out. Third quote comes from Winston Churchill, famous prime minister during World War II in Great Britain. He said, success is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. So what was Churchill suggesting? That, again, okay to fail on a small scale, okay to make mistakes. And yet when we do that, we have to maintain our enthusiasm, maintain our energy. We don't want to let failure get us down. So why do I start with these quotes this morning? Well, because I think marketing is one area within your business that it is okay to make mistakes. In fact, I too will encourage you to make mistakes as it relates to your marketing. Small mistakes, small errors. Jim Collins is famous for saying, encouraging business owners to shoot bullets and not cannonballs. Bullets meaning it's okay to try things out, small mistakes, small errors. Don't want cannonballs. Those might sink our ship. Those might put us out of business. But marketing is one area that, in fact, I will encourage you to make mistakes. When we talk about finance, no mistakes in finance. Talk about operations in Module 5, want to try to minimize your mistakes, your errors there. But in terms of marketing, I think that's how we learn marketing. I think that's how we learn what works and what might not work in terms of our marketing, is by making mistakes. And part of that is because marketing is changing so rapidly. The tactics, not so much the strategies that we'll be talking about today and in our next session, but the marketing tactics, the things that we do daily, certainly change over time. So again, I'm going to be encouraging you to make mistakes. So as we think about marketing, I like this quote from Ken Edmondson. He's an author and writes blogs on marketing. He says, the marketing function is the least understood business function for most mid-market companies, and that would include you all, small businesses as well. And it has changed more than any function over the last 20 years. Marketing is changing every day. What's working, what's not working, what's companies are innovating with. Marketing is changing very rapidly. We've got to be willing to change with it. Mark Satterfield, a small business marketing expert, said the following: the most small business owners think marketing is too expensive and won't work for them. The biggest problem they have is they never get started because they feel it's too overwhelming. I hear that from small business owners. They almost freeze in terms of their marketing efforts because they're not sure what they should be doing or how they should be doing it, when they should be doing it. So as a result, they don't do it. They hesitate, they wait on their marketing, which is unfortunate. So one of the things that I want to be able to do as we talk about marketing is try to simplify marketing as much as possible, because marketing can seem very overwhelming. It can seem very complicated. So I want to try to simplify marketing as much as I can over these next two sessions. And one example of simplifying marketing is, just imagine, as you see on the screen here, 3 different retail businesses, all practically next door to each other, all selling the same stuff, selling the same products. They're competing with each other, all 3 of these businesses. And so one of the businesses decides they're going to try to get the upper hand. They're going to do a little marketing. They're going to put a sign out front, and that sign says, big sale, everything, 50% off, trying to get more traffic to come in their doors. So these other 2 businesses see what their competitors done, and one of the businesses on the far right decides they better put a sign out. Say they put a sign out front of their store saying, going out of business, everything 60% off, right? You've seen those businesses out on the curb, out on the sidewalk, again, trying to get more business to come in their front door. So now imagine you're the owner of the business in the middle, and you see what your competitors are doing in terms of marketing, trying to get more business, and you decide to put your own sign out. What will your sign say? What will your marketing message be? Main entrance. I always think this is just a clever idea in terms of marketing. How do we outsmart our competitors? How do we come up with a better message? And sometimes that message can be as simple as main entrance. Another example of simple marketing, this happened a number of years ago here in Atlanta. It was article in the paper about it. There was in Buckhead, which is a very high area of Atlanta. I think in Houston, maybe the Galleria area, a lot of upscale stores and places to eat. So there was a very high-end hair salon in Buckhead on a main thoroughfare, a main street. And they'd been there for years. Successful hair salon, very upscale. One day, the owner of the hair salon walks out and sees across the street, right across the street in a strip shopping center, there's a new hair salon. It was one of these discount hair salons, very inexpensive. And they had a sign out front, and the sign said $10 haircuts, $10 haircuts. And so the owner of the upscale hair salon saw that sign and thought, holy cow, how we can't do $10 haircuts. How can we compete with that marketing, with that messaging? $10 haircuts. We can't do that. And then all of a sudden, the owner of that hair salon had what I thought was a brilliant idea. He put a sign out front of his hair salon that said the following: "We fix $10 haircuts." We fix $10 haircuts. That's, to me, that's marketing genius. That's guerrilla marketing at its best. How do we come up with a better message and keep it simple? How do we keep our marketing simple? I think that's one of the keys that I want you to take away from our discussion today, is how do we keep our marketing simple? So I want to start off, as we're thinking about marketing, it's important to think about, well, what is marketing? What's the definition of marketing? And I looked, when I first started with this program, I looked all over looking for a really good definition of marketing. And what I found were like paragraph long descriptions of marketing from the American Marketing Association, the AMA, and the World Marketing Association, the WMA. Very academic definitions of marketing: supply and demand, markets and buyers. And I thought, no, there's got to be something simpler. So I went to one of my favorite websites for marketing. It's called marketingprofs.com, marketingprofs.com. And there I found the simplest definition of marketing I've ever seen. 6 words. Marketing means solving customers' problems profitably. 6 words. Marketing means solving customers' problems profitably. The world's simplest definition for marketing. Well, what do I like about this definition? Well, one, it's concise, right? It's only 6 words. It's clear. I think everyone can look at this definition and understand what marketing is. And it's not just for marketeers. It suggests that more people involved in marketing than we might imagine. It's inclusive, meaning fits for big companies, fits for small companies, fits for all different industries. And it's memorable, right? I hope from this point forward, you'll always remember this definition of marketing. Marketing means solving customer problems profitably. And what sticks out to me in this definition, well, several things. One is that word solving, that our job in business is to figure out what our customer problems are and then try to figure out how can we solve that problem, or how can we help the customer solve their own problem. It also, I like about this definition, is that word profitable. It suggests that when we're done, in terms of the exchange that we have with a customer, when we're done solving their problem, we should do so in a profitable fashion. We should have a return on investment. We should be able to make money off of each of these experiences. So it highlights the importance of being profitable. When you look at this definition, who does it suggest is involved in marketing within each of your companies? Who wears the marketing hat?
Everyone.
Everyone. You're exactly right, Julie. You're exactly right. And that's something else that I like about this definition. It suggests that everyone in your company is involved in marketing. Salespeople, your marketing people, your operational people, customer service, finance. because everyone in your company is involved either directly or indirectly in solving customer problems profitably. Everyone in your company wears the marketing hat. So sometimes I'll hear a small business owner say, well, we don't do marketing. We don't really do much marketing. Well, if you look at this definition, is that possible? Is it possible if we're working with customers, is it possible not to be doing marketing? I would suggest no. I would suggest that you're doing marketing all day long. That may not be optimal. You may not be getting the best return on investment. You may need to improve your marketing, but I don't think it's possible to suggest that any one of your companies are not doing marketing. You're doing marketing every single day in some shape or form. You're working with customers every single day. So this is where we're going to start with this definition. Marketing means solving customer problems profitably. Now, I find oftentimes we get confused between sales and marketing. Is sales part of marketing? Is marketing part of sales? How does sales and marketing fit together? So I want to differentiate or help to differentiate between sales and marketing. In confusing the two, confusing sales with marketing, the symptoms of that I see in small companies is, well, the first is the same person is doing both. The same person is charged with marketing and sales, which is unfortunate because they are very different functionally. I also see when companies confuse these two, there's usually no marketing plan. There's no document that says, okay, here's our marketing plan, like we'll be talking about today and next week. Instead, they're usually doing what's referred to as fire drill marketing. Fire drill marketing is just reacting to every possible opportunity for marketing. Fire drill marketing is someone calls you and says, hey, you want to put an ad in the magazine? Sure, we'll put an ad. Someone else calls and says, do you want to attend an event? Sure, we'll attend that event. It's just reacting versus being proactive, which you're more likely to do if you have a marketing plan. So that's usually a symptom of confusing sales with marketing when there is no marketing plan, or our graphic designer is putting out sales sheets, or the person who maintains our website is also, working trade shows, right? Confusing those two roles again. The impact of confusing sales with marketing is one, market confusion. Our customers, our prospects aren't quite sure what it is that we're selling or how it's different. The other impact of confusing sales with marketing is what I normally see in small companies is sales wins and marketing loses, right? Because we'd much rather have sales than do marketing. So if we can put off marketing even for a little bit and get more sales, we're more likely to do that, which is unfortunate because it's marketing that drives sales. If we don't do marketing, the sales pipeline could stop very quickly. So the remedy for confusing marketing with sales is, one, make sure that you separate the two roles within your company. Make sure there's one person who's in charge of marketing, and that might be you, and then someone else is in charge of sales. We want to separate those as much as possible. And what I find many small businesses do is they end up usually outsourcing much of their marketing. They have someone who's in charge of their website outside of the company. They have someone who maybe does some public relations for you, someone who designs your flyers, your brochures. Maybe you're even outsourcing other areas of your marketing as well. And many small companies then keep their sales internal, even though some companies actually outsource their sales as well. They use reps, right? They use contract reps to sell their products or services. So another way to differentiate between these two, between sales and marketing, is think of it this way. Marketing is the who and the what. Sales is the how. Think about that for a moment. Marketing is the who and the what. Marketing decides who our customers are and what is it that they need. Marketing is the who and the what. Sales is the how. Sales figures out how to get that product or service into the hands of our customers. How do we get a transaction? Marketing is the who and the what, sales is the how. Sales is picking fruit from the tree. Marketing is the care and nurturing of that tree. Again, just a way of differentiating between the two. Marketing tends to be a more strategic function, more high level in terms of decision making. Sales tends to be more tactical. Again, comparing the two, sales versus marketing. One of the terms that I've seen recently in the last couple of years is smarketing. SMARKETTING, smarketing. And smarketing is an effort primarily in small and medium-sized companies to try to get sales and marketing to work together as much as possible. We don't want them to be too autonomous or kind of working against each other. We want sales and marketing to work together as much as possible. And the term that's used there is smarketing. We want to try to encourage marketing. I think that's kind of an interesting term, smarketing. So again, marketing, everything that we do to try to reach and persuade prospects. Some people call that fertilizing. Sales, what it is that we do to get a sale, to get a signed agreement, a contract. Some people call that harvesting, fertilizing versus harvesting. The key again is to differentiate between the two. Make sure you have enough effort going into each one of these, marketing and sales. So I love this quote from Peter Drucker, who's a famous author and management guru. He said, "The aim of marketing is to make selling unnecessary, to know and understand the customer so well that the product or service fits him or her and sells itself. So you'll know when your marketing is working when you're doing less selling." Think about that for a moment. You know your marketing is improving. You know that your marketing is working when you find yourself having to do less selling. But on the flip side, if you're having to spend an inordinate amount of time and effort making sales, that's usually an indication that you're not getting the marketing results that you should be. So now what I'd like you to do is you can turn to the next page, I think, in your workbook and your handout. And I want to walk you through a couple different trends in marketing. These are things that have been going on in marketing, really, in some cases, over the last 5 to 10 years. And we still see much evidence of these today. Trends in marketing. And as we go through, I think there are 4 trends. I want you to be thinking, to what degree are your marketing efforts, to what degree is your marketing plan aligned with each of these trends? So the first trend is we've gone from traditional marketing, which was many people consider to be what's referred to as interruption marketing. We've gone from interruption marketing to what we see much more of today, which is what's known as permission marketing. So if you think of most traditional marketing, TV, radio, telemarketing, direct mail, billboards, traditional marketing, much of that marketing, the intent of that marketing was to interrupt you and I as potential consumers, to get us to stop whatever we're in the middle of and take notice of my message as a company. So if it was TV, the TV ad interrupts regular TV, the radio ads interrupt the music, the billboards interrupt our driving, telemarketing interrupts dinner, right? When we used to have landline phones. The whole intent of interruption marketing, traditional marketing, was to get us to stop doing whatever we're doing, listen to my message. Think about it, there's been research done that shows that almost at a minimum, the average adult, you and I, are exposed to over 5,000 marketing messages a day. 5,000 potential interruptions every day. So this movement towards from interruption marketing, traditional marketing, to permission marketing, think about what's triggered this movement, this trend. Well, I would argue what's triggered this trend is that as consumers of marketing, and we're all consumers of marketing, we have figured out ways to get around these traditional marketing efforts, right? Instead of having a landline phone that we get calls on all day long, right? We've all got cell phones. And for a while, wasn't it nice when we didn't get anyone trying to reach us on our cell phones? But now, boy, particularly with the recent elections, you and I were getting phone calls and texts, seemed like all day long, people trying to influence our votes. What else? Interruption marketing. Well, TV, right? We figured out how to get around TV ads by streaming all of our shows, right? Because we hate getting our favorite TV show getting interrupted. On radio, right? We don't listen to radio ads anymore because we're all listening to Spotify, right? We all subscribe to Spotify. We get our own music. We've cut out the ads. So we have figured out a way to maneuver around these traditional marketing interruptions, which has accelerated this movement towards what we call permission marketing. Permission marketing is when you sign up, when you say, hey, I'd like to get your messages. So when you sign up for a podcast, when you sign up for a newsletter, when you sign up for a blog, that's permission marketing. You're giving those companies permission to send you their messages. Most of social media is considered permission marketing, right? Social media like Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, we have given our approval, our permission to each of those platforms to share marketing messages, advertisements with us. So traditional marketing was high pressure, it was bait and switch, it was coercion, and now permission marketing, we see something very different today. All right, so that's the first trend in marketing. We've gone from interruption marketing to permission marketing. The second trend, and this is kind of tied to in some ways, kind of related to the first trend. The second trend is we've gone from outbound marketing. Again, most traditional marketing is considered outbound marketing. We've seen it for 70, 80 years, outbound marketing, where messages are getting pushed out of the company to the target market, you and I, outbound marketing, to what we are seeing more and more of every day today, what is considered inbound marketing. Inbound marketing, again, is permission marketing. Inbound marketing is trying to figure out ways of getting the consumer to come to us. Rather than us pushing messages out to the market, now we're trying to get consumers, both businesses and individuals, to try to find us. Permission marketing. So one of my favorite questions for companies today is, how easy is it for a potential consumer to find your business? If I'm looking for bicycles, if I'm looking for construction service, if I'm looking for food, how long would it take for me to find your business? Because as consumers now, we're no longer waiting by our phone, waiting for someone to call us and say, hey, do you need a new bicycle? Or do you need daycare services? No, when I need a product or I need a service, I go looking for that business. And so the important strategy in marketing today is just making it easy for potential consumers to find you, right? That's what you've heard the term SEO, search engine optimization. That's what SEO is all about, is helping consumers find your business. So again, the question is, in a matter of minutes, if I'm looking for your product, if I'm looking for what you sell, how long as a potential consumer, how long will it take me to find your business? And it should be in minutes. If it's in hours, it's way too long. In B2B and business to business, Forrester Research found that the average consumer spends 90% of the purchasing cycle, the marketing cycle, 90% of it happens before the business is contacted by that business. So the purchaser of that business does all their due diligence, does all their research, talks to all the influencers, checks out your website, checks out your podcast, does all their homework before they pick up the phone and they call you. 90% of their research happens before they contact you directly. And so what are you doing in terms of your marketing to make sure that when they pick up the phone and they call a vendor, that you're one of the companies that they contact? So when we think about inbound marketing, oftentimes the term that we hear is content marketing. Content marketing. Content marketing essentially is helping educate our consumers, providing them with white papers and blogs and newsletters, providing them with information so that when they want to make a decision, we're helping them make a smarter, a better decision. And if we're able to do that, maybe they'll purchase their product from us. Content marketing. The first example, I did a little research on content marketing, and the first known example of content marketing goes all the way back to Ben Franklin. This is back in the colonies. Ben Franklin was a printer. He had a printing business, and he used to publish, it was a publication called The Poor Man's Almanac. He published this little book every year, and everyone used to buy this book, The Poor Man's Almanac. Well, the reason he published this book was to show off his printing capabilities, so that when people looked at this book and they read all the information in The Poor Man's Almanac, if they had something they needed printed, who do you think they called? They called Ben Franklin. It's a way of, that was his marketing, was to publish this little booklet that everyone wanted to get their hands on. Another recent example, fast forward to the 1980s. How many of you remember comic books? Anyone ever read comic books? Well, one of the first comic books was G.I. Joe. And the company that made the dolls, you remember the doll, the G.I. Joe doll, well, they're the ones that came up with the G.I. Joe comic book, because what they found, if they could get kids to read the comic books, what do you think they wanted to buy next? They wanted to buy the doll. So that was an early example of content marketing, creating demand for my product by producing content. In this case, something as simple as a comic book. So those are just some examples of course, content marketing today is again, is newsletters and blogs and white papers, YouTube videos, all examples of content marketing. So why this switch? Why this trend towards inbound marketing? Well, one is we get better results. I saw a study recently that found that the conversion rate as a result of inbound marketing is over 7 times higher than for outbound marketing. Over 7 times higher than outbound marketing. So again, social media, great example of inbound marketing. So a couple years ago, I got confused about all the different types of social media. Maybe you get confused as well. So I went to the expert. I went to my son, my oldest son, Taylor. I said, Taylor, help me understand social media. He said, so he went to the whiteboard. He said, that's easy. He said, Dad, you like donuts? I said, I love donuts. I love eating donuts. He said, okay. So if you went on Twitter, you would tweet, I'm eating a donut. That's an example of what you'd expect to see on Twitter. You'd go to Facebook, another form of social media, and you'd share the message, I like donuts. You'd go to Foursquare and you'd post exactly where you're eating your donuts. You'd go to Instagram and you would share a picture of your favorite donut. You'd go to YouTube and you'd post a video of yourself eating your favorite donut. You'd go to LinkedIn and you'd list as one of your skills, donut eating. Pinterest would be your favorite donut recipe. Last.fm, you would post your favorite song that you listen to when you're eating donuts. And Google Plus, you would make a post that you're a Google employee who likes eating donuts. Just kind of a simple way of differentiating. All these are examples of inbound marketing, social media, different ways, uses of social media. So we're talking about content marketing, social inbound marketing, content marketing. And these are, if you're looking for examples of content marketing on the left, writing articles, social posts, blogs, case studies, videos, white papers, the list goes on, different ways of companies using in B2B, business to business content. So as you're putting together your content marketing program, it's important to understand, to establish what are your objectives. As you're putting together articles and blogs and white papers and videos, what are you hoping to achieve? Well, this was a study that was done a number of years ago. And what they found when they interviewed small businesses, the number one objective of content marketing, inbound marketing, was to engage your customers and your prospects. So we hear that term a lot when we talk about inbound marketing, is how can we better engage our market, our tribe, so to speak, both our existing customers and our prospects. We do that through content marketing. 55% of small business owners say they use content marketing to drive sales, try to move prospects through our pipeline, our sales pipeline. 44% use content marketing to educate the market. 43% use it to increase their web traffic, and so on. So again, you want to be mindful of what are your goals? What are your objectives for content marketing? Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a famous advertising marketing guru, said the following. He said, the more content I put out, the more luck I have. For whatever reason, sometimes it's hard to directly connect producing content, producing information for our prospects, and then getting sales. But what most companies find is the more content and the better content that they put out, they seem to get luckier. They seem to see more revenue. Doug Kessler owns a marketing agency. He says, traditional marketing talks at people, content marketing talks with them. Think about it, if you're on the opposite end of content marketing, if you're a prospect, if you're a customer, would you rather be talked at or talked with? I'd rather have a conversation than have someone screaming at me through traditional marketing. So there's a study that was done that looked at internet searches, right? You and I do internet searches all the time, day in, day out. We're looking at our phone, we're looking at our laptop, we're doing a search for some reason. So they looked at, okay, why? Why do companies do internet searches? And they found there were three primary reasons. 46% of people do internet searches because they're looking for an answer. They have a question and they're looking for an answer. 28% of people do internet searches because they want to be inspired, they want to be motivated, they want to feel good about something. So they do an internet search. And finally, 26% of people do searches because they are looking for an education. They just want to get smarter about a particular topic. So people are looking for answers, they're looking for inspiration, they're looking for education. So here's my question to each of you. If I visited your website today, what are the chances that I would find an answer? I've got a question. What are the chances I would find an answer on your website? If I visited your website today, would I feel inspired? Would I feel motivated? Would I feel good about whatever it is that I'm interested in? And then third, lastly, if I'm looking for an education, if I'm just generally wanting to get smarter about a particular product or service, would I find that education on your website today? So take a good look at your website today after we're done and see to what degree are you providing answers, inspiration, and education. That's what we're looking for as consumers. Another reason why there's been this movement from outbound marketing, traditional marketing, to inbound marketing is the ROI. And now this data, you see it says 2010, 11, 12, but I've not updated the dates, but I've looked at the research and the numbers have stayed essentially the same up through last year. And that is that the average cost per lead for outbound marketing is much higher, sometimes 3 times higher than the cost per lead for inbound marketing. So if you're looking for a better return on investment on your marketing, more than likely you'll find it using inbound marketing versus traditional outbound marketing. The third trend in marketing is we've gone from, again, most traditional marketing was considered first person marketing. First person means me talking about my business, or shouting about my business, first-person marketing, to what we see much more of today, which is what's referred to as third-person marketing. Third-person marketing is getting someone else to talk about my product or service. So examples of third-person marketing would be Yelp in retail, right? People go to use Yelp to find out about different retail businesses, or getting people to provide testimonials. Testimonials are examples of third-person marketing. If you've ever used the website Glassdoor, that's an example of third-person marketing. If I'm trying to find out if I'm a potential employee and I want to find out what is it like to work for that company, I might go to Glassdoor and look for testimonials about a company. But any effort to get someone else to talk favorably about my business, that's considered third-person marketing. Seth Godin is one of my favorite marketing experts, has written a number of best-selling books on marketing, has a podcast, and he also does a daily blog, and he posted this blog a couple years ago. It's called The Four Horsemen of Media. Here comes tiny media. He said the first horse of media is when you talk about yourself. That's traditional marketing. Me talking about my business, about my products. The second horse of media is when you pay someone to carry your message. Media for hire, we call that advertising. I put an ad in the newspaper, I put an ad on TV, I put an ad in a magazine. That's the second horse of media. Third horse of media is when you cajole or convince the editorial side of media to talk about you with authority. So I get quoted in the local newspaper. I write an article for a local magazine. I get interviewed on a talk show. That's the third horse of media today. Godin says the fourth media is all the rage right now. That's when anointed kings of tiny media, we call those influencers today, when bloggers and tweeters and other people, other companies are talking about you and your product. That's where we are today. That's where a lot of marketing is heading today, is how do we get other people to talk favorably about our business, about our product, about our service. Some people, again, use the term influencer marketing. And there are people who have become millionaires by becoming influencers on social media, talking about products that they use or products that they don't use. So this third trend is again, engaging third party, getting other people to talk about our products or services. What about the fourth trend? The fourth trend in marketing is in terms of measurement, in terms of evaluating the results of our marketing. Traditionally, there's been what's referred to as a soft return on investment in marketing. Soft meaning we never quite know if our marketing is working or not. Did that ad in the newspaper get us more sales? Did going to that conference or that trade show, did we get more business as a result of that? Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. Soft return on investment. Well, today that's changed because of the use primarily of digital marketing. It's become much easier to measure the results of our marketing. If I send out, I do a monthly newsletter. When I send out the newsletter, I know exactly what percentage of people opened up that email, how many links they went to. So if somebody forwarded that newsletter to them, I know that. I know how much time they spent on my website. It's become much easier to measure the results of our marketing efforts, again, particularly digital marketing, become much easier. So today we have essentially a hard return on investment. We know what's working and what's not working, far more so than we did with traditional marketing, far more so. And that's a good thing. It's good to know when our marketing is working and when it's not, and how we can make a shift between what's working and what's not working. Okay. All right, so those are the four trends in marketing, and to kind of wrap this up in terms of the changes in marketing today, I want to share with you a brief video. All right. So that video, Eric Qualman does that video every 2 years, just to kind of tell a story about how social media is changing. That was done almost 2 years ago. He's not put out the newest one. Can you imagine what the updated numbers may look like? So I want to pause for a second. Annie, we've walked you through the definition of marketing. We've gone through the 4 different trends in marketing. Any questions or comments on anything that we've covered so far? So this morning, talked about the importance of making mistakes. We define marketing. Marketing means solving customer problems profitably. We talked about we want to keep marketing as simple as possible, uncomplicate our marketing. And then we walked through the 4 different trends in marketing. What do we see? What's going on in marketing today? So let me see. Let me pick on a couple people here. I'll start with the green wave. Mike, are you there?
I'm here.
Mike, what's something you took away from the last hour? What did you find helpful?
I like, pardon me. I like finding out how many people research really online before they actually contact a particular vendor for the product that they're interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's true, not only business to business, it's more prevalent, but even in business to consumer. Think about if you're going to try out a new restaurant. I mean, who dares go to a new restaurant without checking it out ahead of time, right? Or, buying a car or any major consumer purchase, how much homework we do ahead of time now versus just relying on the salesperson to tell us whether we should buy that product or not. We do all of our research up front. Amy, what did you take away from the first hour?
I love the comment, we fixed $10 haircuts. That kind of is providing me a little direction of where I need to go with my marketing, and a conversation I'll be having tomorrow with my marketing team.
Oh, good. Very good. Let's do one more. Helen, good morning. What did you take away from the first hour?
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for asking. I mean, it's just the hammering home and the re-emphasizing the interruption marketing to the permission, and of course the permission. And I'm happy you mentioned about the book, The Story Brand, because it's all about the story, and when you're talking about writing, that's about the consumer, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you.
The customer.
Right.
So I really appreciate that. But there is some crossover, as you know, traditional marketing when you're attempting to stop the scroll, right? So I look forward to your comments when you get more to the social media. Thank you so much.
And
hey, Tim, I got a takeaway. And I gave myself a homework assignment. You said, go to your website and ask whether it answers questions, whether it inspires, or whether it educates. That's a homework assignment I'm going to be doing.
Perfect. So I want to, Helen, you led me to think of something I want to make sure that I make a point of, because we're talking about traditional marketing and inbound marketing. I don't want to suggest traditional marketing is not going away. I don't think. It's certainly becoming less important, I think, to a lot of companies, but we still have TV ads, we still have radio ads, we still have billboards, we still have people calling us on our cell phones. So those traditional marketing maybe are less, what word do I want to use?
Kinder, gentler.
Kinder, gentler, yeah. Maybe we don't get the results. Companies aren't getting the results from them they might have gotten from before. Again, because as consumers, we've become pretty savvy about working our way around those traditional marketing arms, but they're still with us, and more likely they still will be for time to come. So now what I'd like to do is I want to move forward and introduce you to the marketing cycle. Let me pull up my PowerPoint here. So you'll see in your workbook, there's an article in there. You see a page that says Video Seth Godin. And he did a TED Talk a number of years ago, Seth Godin did, on the tribe. It's entitled The Tribes That We Lead. And your homework after today's session is to watch this TED Talk. We'll send you the link to it. It's one of the most popular TED Talks ever done on TED.com. And Godin talks about, again, kind of goes back and gives us a history of marketing, traditional marketing versus what we see now. But about 2/3 of the way through the TED Talk, he suggests 3 questions that we should be asking of ourselves on a regular basis as it relates to our marketing. And I want to, when we come back next week, there'll be a pop quiz. I'm going to ask a couple of you what your answers are to those 3 questions. So make sure you watch the Seth Godin TED Talk after today's session. And again, we'll send you the web link for that. Okay. So now, the marketing cycle, if you've ever taken a marketing class, a workshop, something similar to that in school or otherwise, you may have been introduced to this idea of the marketing cycle. It's what we go through and around on a continuous basis as we're doing our marketing. The first stage of the marketing cycle is doing market analysis, doing market research, getting smarter about our product, our competitors, and our customers. And some people tend to think, well, we only do market analysis when we first get started in our business. And that's unfortunate, because I think the research that you do today and tomorrow going forward is as important as the market analysis you might have done when you first started your business. But we do analysis on an ongoing basis. The second stage or step in the marketing cycle is, once we've done some market analysis, is then we establish our marketing objectives and our marketing strategies. We start working on our marketing plan. Our objectives may be more revenue, more market share, more awareness, and then the strategies that might help us achieve those objectives. And then once we've established our marketing objectives and strategies, we've started working on our marketing plan, we then implement, we execute that marketing plan. We put it to work. Daily basis, weekly, monthly, we put our plan into action, we implement. And the fourth, and maybe the most overlooked step in the marketing cycle, is once we've implemented our marketing plan, we then have to evaluate our plan. Is it working? Are we achieving our goals and objectives? Do we have the right strategies, the right tactics? And so we're ongoing, we're evaluating our plan, and then that leads us back to market analysis. We do more research, we do more study, and then we refine those objectives and strategies, we refine our plan, and we just keep going round and round in this marketing cycle. And as you do that, what I would want to suggest is that you ask the question, so what's broken in my marketing cycle? What's not working? What needs to be fixed? What do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing as you're going through this marketing cycle? Well, I want to spend a good amount of time this morning focusing on the first step in the marketing cycle, the market analysis. And I'm going to pull the PowerPoint down and come back to you here. So I want to argue there are 3 things that we want to do research on an ongoing basis. And I mentioned it before. We want to do research on whatever it is that we're selling, our product or service. We want to do research on our competition. And third, and maybe most importantly, we need to better understand and do research on our customers. So I want to take each one of those individually and share some thoughts on each one of those. So let's start off with our product. Clearly, we want to be as smart as possible about whatever it is that we're selling. And so if my product is this pen, what is it that I might or need to know about this pen in terms of research? What should I know about this pen? Anybody?
Material, prices, and who's selling it around you.
Yeah, I need to know, what are the materials that go into this pen? What different types of materials go into this pen? And then once I've done that, how do people use this pen? For what purposes do people use this pen? And who else is selling? That'd be looking at competition. Who else is selling this pen? But I want to look at the shapes and the sizes and the packaging, the different types of ink. Essentially, I need to become an expert on pens. If this is my product, I need to become an expert on pens. And so that means I need to be studying and updating my research all the time. So my goal is to become essentially an expert on whatever it is that I'm selling. And so where do I get that information? Where do I find out more about my pen? Well, I'd probably join if there's an industry association for sellers of pens. I'd be a member of that association. I would attend their conferences, their trade shows. I would subscribe to their newsletters, always looking to consume new information about that product, about that service. And certainly the internet, there's no shortage of information on any product or service. So again, I'm always looking on the internet for additional research. I'm talking to my customers about these pens, about how they use these pens and what changes would they like to see in these pens? What innovations would they like to see in my product or service? So I'm always looking to update what I know about my product or service, because it's almost like there's a pop quiz every day on my product, right? People are asking me questions about my product or service all the time. I heard a video a couple of years ago that really kind of changed my thinking about product and the type of research that I should do on my product. The video was done by a professor at Harvard. His name, Dr. Clay Christensen. He's written a number of best-selling books, and he actually, unfortunately, passed away about a year ago, but really was considered a leader in terms of thought about marketing. So I want to share with you a brief video that he did a couple years ago. It's only about 4 minutes long, I think. But again, I think it gives us an interesting perspective about what it is that we sell. So hang with me for just a minute, and let me see if I can find this video.
Hi, my name's Clay Christensen. I'm a professor at the Harvard Business School. I brought with me a set of puzzles, all related to innovation. We decided that the way we teach marketing is at the core of what makes motivation difficult to achieve. The most helpful way we've thought of it so far is that we actually hire products to do things for us. And understanding what job we have to do in our lives for which we would hire a product is really the key to cracking this problem of motivating customers to buy what we're offering. So I wanted just to tell you a story about a project we did for one of the big fast food restaurants. They were trying to goose up the sales of their milkshakes. They had just studied this problem up the gazoo. They brought in customers who fit the profile of the quintessential milkshake consumer. And they'd give them samples and ask, could you tell us how we can improve our milkshakes so you'd buy more of them? Do you want it chocolatey or cheaper, chunky or chewier? They get very clear feedback. They would then improve the milkshake on those dimensions, and it had no impact on sales or profits whatsoever. So one of our colleagues went in with a different question on his mind, and that was, I wonder what job arises in people's lives that cause them to come to this restaurant to hire a milkshake. So we stood in a restaurant for 18 hours one day and just took very careful data. What time did they buy these milkshakes? What were they wearing? Were they alone? Did they buy other food with it? Did they eat it in the restaurant or drive off with it? It turned out that nearly half of the milkshakes were sold before 8 o'clock in the morning. The people who bought them were always alone. It was the only thing they bought, and they all got in the car and drove off with it. So to figure out what job they were trying to hire it to do, we came back the next day and stood outside the restaurant so we could confront these folks as they left, milkshake in hand. And in language that they could understand, we essentially asked, excuse me please, but I got to sort this puzzle out. What job were you trying to do for yourself that caused you to come here and hire that milkshake? And they'd struggle to answer, so we'd then help them by asking other questions like, well, think about the last time you were in the same situation, needing to get the same job done, but you didn't come here to hire a milkshake. What did you hire? And then as we put all of their answers together, it became clear that they all had the same job to do in the morning, and that is they had a long and boring drive to work. And they just needed something to do while they drove to keep the commute interesting. One hand had to be on the wheel, but somebody had given them another hand and there wasn't anything in it. And they just needed something to do while they drove. They weren't hungry yet, but they knew they'd be hungry by 10 o'clock. So they also wanted something that would just pull down there and stay for their morning. Good question. What do I hire when I do this job? You know, I've never framed the question that way before, but last Friday I hired a banana to do the job. Take my word for it, never hire bananas. They're gone in 3 minutes, you're hungry by 7:30. If you promise not to tell my wife, I probably hire donuts twice a week, but they don't do it well either. They're gone fast, they crumb all over my clothes, they get my fingers gooey. Sometimes I hire bagels, but as you know, they're so dry and tasteless. Then I have to steer the car with my knees while I'm putting jam on them, and then if the phone rings, we got a crisis. I remember I hired a Snickers bar once, but I felt so guilty I've never hired Snickers again. Let me tell you, when I come here and hire this milkshake, it is so viscous that it easily takes me 20 minutes to suck it up that thin little straw. Who cares what the ingredients are? I don't. All I know is I'm full all morning and it fits right here in my cup holder. Well, it turns out that the milkshake does the job better than any of the competitors, which in the customers' minds are not Burger King milkshakes, but it's bananas, donuts, bagels, Snickers bars, coffee, and so on. But I hope you can see how, if you understand the job, how to improve the product becomes just obvious.
It's Clay Christensen. So 3 things stand out to me every time I see that short video. First of which, it never occurred to me that anyone drank milkshakes in the morning before 8 o'clock. I've never had a milkshake before 8 o'clock in the morning, but he said 50% of milkshakes are consumed before 8 a.m. I was startled when I first heard that. Second thing that stands out, I don't know if you noticed the background. Just once, I want to do a training program in a room overlooking the bay like that. What a beautiful view he had there. But the third thing that really got my attention was that question. What job does someone hire your product to do? And who did they hire last time to do that same job? It's a very different way of looking at what it is that you sell, that people are hiring your product or service to do a job. Now, the milkshake, he said people hire the milkshake for a couple of reasons. One, they're driving with one hand, they have an empty hand, they don't know what to do with this hand, they need something in this hand, why not a milkshake? Second is, I'm driving someplace in the morning, I'm hungry, right? I got an empty gut, I need something to fill that gut. Snickers bar doesn't do it, the donuts didn't do it, milkshake fills me up. So what job does that milkshake do? It fills me up for that drive that I'm on. So think about your product or service and what job do your customers purchase that product to do? And then the follow-up question is, before they purchase your product, what product did they purchase the last time they needed that job done? So let's see. John, will come to you. Are you ready? John?
Yes. Okay. So I have a math tutoring business. All right.
Yep.
So what job are people filling if they want their kids to pass the current math course? Whatever it is, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, whatever it is, high school. And so and what have they done to last time? They may have gone to a different tutoring center. They may have gone to after school tutoring, which is really not after school tutoring because there's, 20 kids and 2 teachers. So it's not really tutoring. And they say that doesn't work. The after school tutoring doesn't work because it's just the ratios aren't adequate. So what we do is we provide that, customized one-on-one service for the students.
And so the product, what I heard, the product is pass the test.
Yes.
Help my kid pass the test.
Right.
Interesting. All right. Nicole, how about for you? What job are your customers hiring your product to do?
I have a child care center, so I love and care and take care of their children when they're not able to do so themselves or they don't have immediate family to provide that service. And that is one of the questions that I always ask my potential new clients is, have they had previous childcare experience at another center? And was that recently? And if so, why are they looking for another center? Just so I can get some background on what issues they might have had that I can improve upon.
Yeah. So your job is to watch the kids, keep the kids safe. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Interesting. So again, it just by asking that simple question, it causes us to look at whatever it is that we're selling our product. My pen, why do people hire this pen? Well, they need something, one, to fit in their hand, and two, something that'll help them take notes or keep records or whatever the case might be. And who did they hire last time they needed something documented, something written down? What job does my product do? This, I think, an interesting question as you're doing research on your product. So number one, we want to get smarter about whatever it is that we're selling. Number two, I want to suggest that we want to do research on our competition, I love that there's an old quote from the Chinese philosopher Sun Tzu. He said, keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. Right? We really want to keep track of what is it that our competitors are doing. And so I want to suggest that there are 2 types of competitors that we need to be mindful of. Direct competitors, indirect competitors. 2 types of competitors, direct and indirect. Direct competitors are selling essentially the same product we're selling to the same target market, competing for the same dollar that we're competing for. Direct competitor, same product, same market, same dollar. Direct competitor. Indirect competitor, different product, same target market, competing for the same dollar that we are. What did you notice? What's the difference between the direct and the indirect competitors? Anybody?
Different product for indirect.
Yeah, different products. Yeah. And so my best example, and I've shared this many times before, was early on in my career, I owned with my wife a retail travel agency. And we help people take vacations. We help business travelers make their trips. We did both business and vacations. And I remember one day we had a client come in and he announced he wanted to take his wife on a cruise. Now this was a wedding anniversary. They were celebrating like a 10th wedding anniversary. And we were excited because a cruise was a significant purchase. It was a $5,000 or $10,000 purchase, big sale for us. So we set the client down with our cruise expert, and they probably spent an hour looking at different itineraries, different ships, different destinations. And after about an hour, he got up, he said, this is great. I've got all the information I need. I'll give you a call in a day or so, and I'll book this cruise for my wife and I. Perfect. Day or two passes, we don't hear anything. A couple more days pass, no call, nothing. Finally, after about a week, I called the client up. I said, hey, you're in a week ago. You're talking about a cruise, 10th wedding anniversary. What did you decide to do? He said, well, I kind of changed my mind. He said, I decided instead of a cruise to buy my wife a beautiful diamond necklace. She'll be so happy. I was not so happy. I thought, What a dumb decision. A cruise versus jewelry. How could he make such a poor decision? And then it occurred to me for the first time that we had a new competitor, one that I had never paid much attention to. Who was the new competitor? Anybody? The jewelry store, right? Up to that point, I had just imagined that my competitors were other travel agencies. And there were a half a dozen other travel agencies within our kind of geographic market. And we competed against each other. We all knew each other and we competed against each other in different ways. But I never thought of the jewelry store as a competitor until that moment. But they were an indirect competitor. They weren't selling travel, they were selling jewelry. But they were selling into the same target market, an affluent target market, people with extra money to take cruises or buy jewelry. And they were competing, in my case, for the same $5,000 to $10,000 that this customer had to spend on his anniversary. They were an indirect competitor. Well, this really opened up my eyes because I started thinking, well, who else are my indirect competitors? Jewelry store, furniture store, car dealership. These were all places that that he could have taken that same amount of money and made a purchase. Well, this again really changed my marketing because up to this point, our marketing message had essentially been, we're a better travel agency. We're better than this agency. We're better than this one. We're better than this one. We're faster. We're smarter. We're more experienced. We're a better travel agency. Now, after this experience with this client and the jewelry, our marketing message changed. It morphed to, wouldn't you rather travel? Wouldn't you rather take a trip? Would you agree that's a very different message than, we're the best travel agency? Wouldn't you rather travel? So think about your competitors. My guess is your direct competitors. Remember, direct competitors selling the same product or service, same target markets, competing for the same amount of money that you are. Think about who your direct competitors are. My guess is you could name off 3, 4, 6 of your direct competitors. But also think about who are your indirect competitors. Who is selling a different product or service to the same target market, competing for the same dollar that you are? Indirect competitors. Let's see, let's hear a couple examples. Christine, good morning.
Good morning.
So, I've got a couple, Christine. Christine Nugent, we'll go to you first, and Christine Hens, I'll come back to you. So, Christine Nugent, remind us what your product or service is.
We sell painted auto body parts.
There we go. And how many direct competitors do you have sell essentially the same stuff to the same people?
Probably 5 main direct competitors.
Okay. And your primary customer, describe your primary customer.
They value their time, convenience.
Yeah. But are they individuals? Are they companies?
Individuals.
Individuals. Okay. So it could be me looking for a part for my car. Mm-hmm. Good. And so I could, certainly variety of different places like you all that I could go to. So lots of direct competitors. Who might be an indirect competitor for you?
It would be the body shops.
Yeah.
That you can take your car to instead.
Okay. Yeah, I could just go to a body shop and they could order that part for me. Where else? What else? If I've got a broken part, where else might I go?
Another online, Amazon.
Okay. Yeah. But what about the
AutoZone?
AutoZone, yeah. So a different product. So give me an example of maybe your most popular product that you sell.
So like our side view mirrors.
Side mirrors, right? So I've got an old car and the mirror needs to be replaced. What's that mirror going to cost me?
$350.
$350. Okay. Woo, that's expensive. So on average, $350 to replace the mirror on my car. It's $3.
$350.
$350. So Christine, here's the question. I don't know if I need to replace that mirror or not. Maybe I'll spend that $350 on what else?
Anything else, I guess.
Let's say for the car, where else could I spend $300 on my car aside from a new mirror?
You mean like something else besides a mirror?
Yep.
Your paint?
Yeah, I could maybe get a really cheap paint job. I could get some, boy, you know, the car's not been running very well. I could maybe get some work done on the car. I could replace, boy, you know, I could use some tires on that car. The tires aren't very good on that car. I could go buy some tires for my car. Oh my goodness, you've got all sorts of indirect competitors, don't you?
Yes, I do.
All competing, all car owners, all competing for that same $350.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your direct competitors and you've got your indirect competitors. Yeah. And so what I want to suggest is one that you recognize both, recognize who your direct competitors are, recognize who your indirect competitors are, and then do your research on them. How are you different than your direct competitors? How do you compete against your direct competitors? How are you better than? What's your competitive advantage? Something we'll talk about later. And the same thing with your indirect competitors. So you see in your, I think, do you have an article in your book that says top 10 ways to spy on your competitors? No. Okay. I'll send you that article. Good article on doing research on your competitors. But I do know on maybe the next page you have it's called a competitive analysis. Yeah, turn to that competitive analysis. So this is a tool that I have found to be very helpful in doing research on competitors. It's essentially just a one-page kind of report on competitors. On the vertical axis, you identify your different competitors, competitor A, competitor B, just who are my different competitors. You're going to list your competitors. And then on the horizontal axis, you're going to identify how do you compete with those competitors. The examples you see on this page are price, location, quality, unique features, strengths and weaknesses, marketing, market share, and distribution system. These are just examples of ways that you may compete with your direct and maybe even your indirect competitors. So let's see how this tool might work. So under where it says competitor A, write the name of one of your direct competitors. First one that comes to mind. Just write down the name of one of your direct competitors underneath where it says competitor A. All right? And so I want you to think about it. I want you to focus on that direct competitor as we work our way through these different factors. So let's start with price. As you think of this direct competitor, if their price is higher than your prices in general, put a greater than sign. You know what I mean by a greater than sign, right? An inverse letter V. If their prices are higher than yours, put a greater than sign. If their prices are lower than yours, put a less than sign. And if their prices are about the same as yours, put an equal sign. I just want you to think about their pricing versus yours, okay? Next, location. How would you describe their location as it compares to yours? So examples might be they've got 10,000 square feet in terms of their location, or they've got 6 locations and we only have 1, or their location is in town and we're located out of town. How would you compare their location to yours? Okay. Next, quality. As you think about the quality of this competitor's product or service, would you say that their quality is better than yours? If so, put again a greater than sign. If their quality of their products is inferior to the quality of your product or service, put a less than sign. And if their quality is about the same as yours, put an equal sign. How would you judge the quality of their product or service? greater than, less than, or equal to yours? Next, unique features. As you think about this direct competitor, what is unique about their company? What stands out about their company? So unique features, example could be they've been in business for 100 years. A unique feature, they are a woman-owned business. They're certified as a woman-owned business. Unique feature, there are 3 partners, 10 locations. Unique feature, I don't know, what else comes to mind? Unique feature. They recently won an award. What makes them different? What makes them stand out as a competitor? Okay. Next, strengths and weaknesses. Identify one strength of this competitor, something they do well, something that they're really good at, and then identify at least one weakness of this competitor. Where are they vulnerable? Where are they at risk? Where do you have an advantage over this competitor? A strength and a weakness. Next, under marketing, what type of marketing do they do? Do they do digital marketing, email marketing, door to door? Do they have salespeople? Do they use reps? What type of marketing are you aware of that they engage in? How do they promote their products and services? Try to list a couple different ways that they market. Market share. Market share speaks to, of all the money spent on this particular product that they sell and you sell, what percentage is theirs? What is their market share? So you may not know the dollar market share, but you have some sense of size. Are they bigger than you in terms of sales volume? Are they smaller than you? If they're bigger than you, put a greater than sign. If they're smaller than you, put a less than sign. Again, we're talking about revenue, talking about sales. If they're about the same size as your company, put an equal sign. Just judging some sense of size, total revenue. And then finally, distribution system. How do they distribute their product or service? Are they a retailer, a wholesaler, a jobber? Do they go direct with customers? Do they go through reps? Are they a franchisor, online, offline? How do they distribute their product or service? This may be more applicable to some of you than others. Distribution system. How do they get their product in the hands of the consumer? Okay, so I wanted to demonstrate to you how to use this competitive analysis matrix. So now just imagine that you had that same information on each of your competitors, primarily your direct competitors. How helpful would that be? Well, certainly in terms of making better marketing decisions, it would be very helpful, very helpful. And the term that we use in marketing is positioning. How are you positioning your company versus your competitor? In the eyes of the consumer, how do they see you versus them? And the only way that we can make good decisions about positioning is by doing our research, by doing our homework on those competitors. And I want to suggest that you want to do this research on an ongoing basis. What do I need to know about my competitors? One way that I do market, one way that I keep up with my competitors is through the use of what are called Google Alerts. Anyone familiar with Google Alerts? Show of hands, yeah. You can set these up on Google. If you just do a search on Google Alerts, what it does is anytime, and you identify either the name of the company or the name of a person, anytime they show up on the internet for whatever reason, you get an email notice. So if I'm following Helen, if I want to know when Helen has a new product, a new customer, whatever, I'm going to put the name of her business into my Google alerts. And that way, anytime she or her company shows up in the news for whatever reason, I get an alert that says, hey, Helen just was in the local paper for this or a magazine or whatever. So I have found Google Alerts to be a really helpful way of keeping track of my customers and my competitors at the same time, right? So I want to encourage you to use that competitive analysis matrix to keep up with your competitors. So there's a new term that's been coined just within the last couple of years that I've seen it in terms of working with your competitors. And the term is co-opetition. Co-opetition. So as a young entrepreneur, I didn't want to have anything to do with my competitors. In fact, in my mind, the competitors were the bad guys. I was a good guy. They were bad guys. I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't want to see them. I certainly didn't want to socialize with them, right? Because it was me against my competitors. And then for whatever reason, I got to know a couple of my competitors. I would see them at the store. I'd see them in a restaurant. I'd see them at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, right? I'd see them in church, wherever. I'd bump into a competitor. And so I got to know my competitors a little bit. And then before I knew it, I'd invite a competitor to breakfast. I'd invite a competitor to lunch. And then something very odd happened when I did that. So if Amy was one of my competitors and I would invite Amy to grab a cup of coffee, and I would ask Amy a question like, Amy, your company is growing so fast and you've got such a great reputation and you've got great customers. How do you do it? And Amy would do something that I never believed was possible. She would answer my question. She'd start telling me about all the great things they were doing, all the great marketing things they were doing, and how they acquired new customers and how they were retaining customers. And she would give away all of her secrets just over a cup of coffee. It was amazing. And then I'd say, Amy, you've got great employees. I don't get it. I don't know where you find these people. How do you find these great employees? And how do you keep them? They've been working for you forever. And she would tell me. She'd tell me all of her secrets just over a cup of coffee. So that changed my whole mindset around competition, from trying to separate myself from the competition to trying to get as close to my competitors as possible. Whether it was over a cup of coffee, it was lunch, or just, when I saw them, just engaging with them. So that's this idea of co-opetition. Co-opetition is essentially looking for ways to work with versus against your competitors.
Yeah. And there's some, Tim, some good examples going on right now. I know in some of the restaurant industries, there was an article I think might have been on CNBC or one of the sites that I saw that talked about ghosting of restaurants.
Yeah.
And how maybe the restaurants that are surviving, they're licensing. Say they're a Mexican restaurant, but they're now licensing to do barbecue or something, right? So there's some creative stuff that's going on right now. So thanks for mentioning that.
A great example. And, just co-opetition is just looking for ways to potentially work with your competitors. I know sometimes with my competitors, we might go to a conference together. We may share our notes. We may put on an event. Maybe it's a hiring event, or maybe it's a client, a prospecting event, looking for ways to work together versus working against your competitors. One, it's a great way to learn about your competitors. And two, you may find there's some synergy there that you might have with your competitors. And all of a sudden, Amy has someone that comes to her looking for work and she's not hiring. Who do you think she refers that person to? To me. Or she gets a customer who's looking for a particular service that she doesn't offer. Who is she going to refer that customer to? To me, because now we've established this relationship between two different companies. So I really want to encourage you, once you've identified your competitors and you've done some research on them, look for opportunities to work with your competitors. One of my favorite quotes, and I'll paraphrase it because I don't know it exactly, came from Abe Lincoln from the book Team of Rivals. He said, Do we not destroy our enemies when we make them our friends? Do we not destroy our enemies when we make them our friends? Lincoln is famous when he first was elected president, he put together his cabinet. He put a number of people who ran against him for president on his cabinet because he felt like the closer he could stay to those quote unquote competitors, the better off he was. So he put them on his cabinet. He engaged them into his organization. Simon Sinek, one of my favorite authors, written a number of best-selling books. When he talking about competitors, his suggestion was, quote, find a worthy rival. Find a worthy rival, because by finding a strong competitor, someone who you feel like, hey, I need to get like them, I need to be as good as those guys, doesn't that force us to raise our own game? Doesn't that force us to get better? Find a worthy rival. Okay, so those just couple different ideas relative to your competitors, understanding your competitors. All right, let's go now. The third thing I want to suggest that we really want to get smart about are our customers, right? Of course, we want to analyze, we want to research our customers. We need to get to know our customers better. I want to suggest that there are two buckets of information that we need to gather and understand about our customers. Two types of information: demographics and psychographics. Demographics, psychographics. Demographics essentially is the information that you would find on like a census. Demographics like of an individual would be their age and their income, family status, religion, housing, all those things. Those are demographics. For a business, it would be the size of the company, number of employees, what industry are they in, how long have they been in business, how many locations. Demographics of our customers. Usually fairly easy to gather demographic information. I also want you to understand the psychographics of your customers. Second bucket of information, psychographics. Psychographics essentially is the study of what causes someone to make a purchasing decision. Psychographics. What goes on up here in the mind of the consumer that says, I want to buy that cup of coffee versus that cup of coffee. Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts, right? Psychographics, what's going on in our head? So let's see, how can I explain psychographics? Here's how I want to explain psychographics. I think I can make a compelling case that at the end of the day, there are only two products on this entire planet. Two products. And you're selling one or the other. Aspirin and vitamins. Every company on this planet is selling either aspirin or vitamins. Let's think about that for a moment. Again, thinking about why someone consumes your product or service. Would you agree there are only two reasons that we buy anything? One is because we're feeling pain. And if we're feeling pain, what do we buy? Aspirin. Or if I want to prevent pain, or maybe I just want to feel better, what do I buy? Vitamins. Aspirin and vitamins. There are only two products on the entire planet. And your consumers, when they buy your product or service, they're buying one or the other. They're either buying aspirin because they're in pain and they need you to help alleviate that pain, or they're buying vitamins, they want to prevent pain, or they just want to feel better. They want your product or service to help them feel better. So think about what is it that you're selling? So Julie, we'll go to your customers. When they're purchasing your product or service, what are they buying? Are they buying aspirin or vitamins?
Sometimes they're buying both, actually, but I would say they're buying aspirin.
Okay, and talk more about that. Remind us what it is that you're selling.
So we help people get their lives back on track if they suffer from a substance use disorder. So drug and alcohol treatment.
Yep, yep. So they're either coming to you in certainly in some kind of pain, clearly, or
and emotional.
Yeah, yeah, physical and emotional, and or they are trying to avoid that in some way. Interesting. Purchasing both. Margarita, how about for you? What are your clients? What are they purchasing? Aspirin or vitamins?
Tim, they are purchasing aspirins
And describe the pain. What pain are they feeling?
because they come to us when their business is low and their profits and revenues are down the drain.
Yeah, their marketing's not working. They're wasting money, and so they're in pain. And,
Down.
Don't have any more extras, right?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Margarita. I missed what you just said.
buy
Oh,
one.
When they're looking somebody to support
buying
them,
one?
they're ready to close down.
Yeah, yeah.
The 3-pack.
We're getting a little background noise. Might have to mute. Thank you. So let me. I'll tell you for myself. What's the difference between the two, vitamins and aspirin? Well, when I buy aspirin, the real aspirin, I'm in great pain. I'm sore. I'm achy. Whatever. I have looked all over the house. I can't find any aspirin. So I've got to go to the store. So I get in my car, I drive, it's about 1.5 miles to a Chevron gas station. I go running into Chevron station. I go into the Mart. I go down the third aisle towards the end where the aspirin is. I grab a bottle of aspirin. Who cares who makes it? Who cares how much it is?
Oh, yeah.
I go walking by the cash, the
Okay, you
check
pick, you know what I
cashier.
like.
I throw money at the cashier. I get back in the car. That's how I buy aspirin. I'm in great pain. I need aspirin. How about vitamins? I buy vitamins once a year at Costco. I don't know if you've ever bought vitamins at Costco before. There's a whole aisle of vitamins, and the containers are like this big. I'm buying a jug of vitamins. I'm embarrassed to say, I'll spend 20, 30 minutes buying like a bucket of vitamins, studying the ingredients and the price per tablet. I'll take an inordinate amount of time buying those vitamins. That's how I buy vitamins. Would you agree that the process for me between buying aspirin and vitamins is very different? Would you agree that your customers, depending on which one they're buying, that path, that journey for them can be very different? Yeah. So the key is understanding what it is that, and this is psychographics. Psychographics, what triggers a purchasing decision? What causes someone to buy this product versus this product? Starts off, I think, understanding is, are they buying aspirin or are they buying vitamins? Which one is it?
And we asked that question when at Mathnasium, when we were talking to the parent, are your kids struggling or are you looking to get advanced? And we have both situations. They want my kid to skip a grade. They want my kid to get a scholarship or whatever it happens to be. So they're buying vitamins. But the other half is the ones who are struggling, who are failing, or not getting good grades in class. And so they're buying the aspirin.
Yeah, a great example. And again, the key is, because it is understanding the difference between the two. And I think it's also important to think about, clearly some companies only sell aspirin. Some companies only sell vitamins. And as we've already seen, there are some companies that sell both. Some of your customers are in pain and they need help alleviating that pain. Some of them are buying vitamins. They want to prevent pain, feel better. Which I'm curious, which would you rather sell? If you had a preference, if you could only sell one, vitamins or aspirin, what would you rather sell? Anybody?
Aspirin.
Aspirin. And Margarita, why aspirin? What's wrong with the vitamins?
I would rather sell aspirins just because I know that with my knowledge and the research that I have in the background, I am going to able not just help that particular client or person, I'm going to help an entire community because of the people that are going to go into their websites or their business with
Yeah.
ideas, creations, and of course, most of all, solution or an answer for what everybody else is looking for them.
Interesting. Yeah. You know, I think back to my travel agency, we sold both. We had some people who traveled because they had to, business travel, or they were going to a funeral or whatever reason, they had to travel. And then we had other people who wanted to travel, aspirin versus vitamins. And here's what we found: the people who had to travel, they didn't, they were not as price sensitive, right? If they had to travel, they had to travel, and they weren't really shopping that travel. It's like, just, get me to Minneapolis, whatever it costs. Versus the people that wanted to travel were far more price sensitive. They were shoppers, more likely. We also found the people that had to travel, they weren't quite as nice. They weren't quite as friendly because they didn't want to make this trip. They had to make this trip. So they weren't quite as easy to work with. Versus the people that were shopping, wanting to travel, wanting to take a cruise, wanting to take a ski trip, they were kind of fun to work with. So the consumers were very different, ones who purchased aspirin versus purchased vitamins. Again, the key is, if you're selling both, to differentiate, understand what it is they want, how they want it. Here's another thing to think about if you're selling both, is your messaging, your branding. Because if all I sell is aspirin, then I'm just going to put a big banner up that says, hey, we're the best sellers of aspirin. And people either will or won't believe that we're the best sellers of aspirin. If I sell vitamins and only vitamins, I put a big sign up that says we sell vitamins and that's all we sell, and we're the best at selling vitamins. Hopefully people will believe that. But what happens when I put two signs out front that say we sell aspirin and we sell vitamins? Now, what's the market thinking when they see two signs?
Two different products, but is it our job to connect them?
Yes, you're exactly right. But the challenge is, what goes through the mind of the consumer is, okay, I can believe that they sell this or they sell this, but is it possible to be really good at both? And that's where the confusion comes in, because now you're trying to sell me not on one product, but you're trying to sell me on two very different products. And that can create confusion in the marketplace. And Laura, what happens when a consumer is confused? What happens to the sale?
Well, I think you try to, if you have a close relationship with your customers, then you explain why the aspirin can help the vitamins, or vice versa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I try to make a case. Try to make a case for either one, but here's the short answer: a confused buyer rarely buys. Confusion is the biggest obstacle we have. One of the biggest obstacles we have in marketing, because confused buyers rarely buy. They go someplace else. So if you're selling both, and I'm not saying you can't sell both, just know that you have a harder job of marketing those products, because you're having to make a case for why you're capable of selling both. It's a tougher sell.
But like in flowers, the aspirin can be the death of people or pain situations, and then the vitamins will be all the rest, expression of feelings. So whenever a customer comes to flowers, they're not confused, because they can find either wise if they're looking for one or the other one. So maybe this is a different case.
No, you're right. And again, the key is to understand both of those and what motivates each of those to purchase. I would argue that for the aspirin, it's much about convenience. right? I told you the gas station is only a mile and a half away. It's pretty easy to get to. For the person buying the vitamins, it could be about quality, more about quality. It could be more about price. It could be about reputation, a number of other factors. So just key to understand the difference between the two.
Hey, Tim.
Yes.
In my industry, which is the real estate industry, vitamins and aspirin works both ways. Okay.
So talk more about that.
Okay. The aspirin, you solving a problem. Okay, with them. Vitamins, it give them a boost when they buy when they get the home, the dream home. Okay.
Yeah.
Aspirin is when they want to upgrade. Okay. I might want to downsize.
So you see both of those in the same consumer, even. Interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting.
I too kind of see a little bit of a blend there because at first, when we started talking about this, I was thinking that we mostly just sell vitamins, with bicycles and fixing bicycles, the health aspect, right? But if you look at it from, the aspect of the bicycle itself, if someone were to bring in their bicycle for repairs, let's say, that could be a fix for the pain of the bike, whatever's wrong with the bike. But I wonder, should one, look about these customers both ways or try to identify one way? Do we want to look at the vitamins as the fix for the pain, or do we want to, try to identify the customer first as someone who's looking for aspirin or someone who's looking for vitamins, and then phrase the product they're looking for toward what they are? If you bring in a bike that's not doing so well, you're coming for aspirin, right? But I could very easily tell you that vitamins are going to be more cost effective. This new bicycle is with a vitamin.
Yeah.
So
I think it's
for maintenance.
Well, that's if the maintenance is the aspirin, but the maintenance far exceeds the cost of the vitamin, the new parts or the new bike, that could be a conversion tool.
Yeah. And that's not unusual that some companies will sell aspirin to acquire the client, and then they sell them the vitamins to retain the client. One gets them in, one keeps them as a client. But Rick, back to your question, I think it comes down to an individual decision. One is maybe, where's there the greater opportunity selling aspirin versus vitamins? In your target market, maybe where's the most potential? And then in terms of a marketing message, is it possible that you can sell both and still reach whatever marketing objectives that you have? So a number of questions that I think go in. It's not an easy decision.
Is this similar to the growth market, the growth strategy that we talked about earlier? Because would it be kind of two separate segments
that we talked about last week in terms of when you're looking to either add products or add markets, understanding your customers and again what they're purchasing it goes a long way in making those strategic decisions. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions on this idea?
Yeah, it clearly hammers home, Tim, the importance of talking to your avatar, right? And understanding what does that mean to your bottom line. It's a risk, right? To say, hey, I'm only going to serve aspirin, but there's folks who only serve aspirin all day long. I was a road warrior during my corporate years, and I think you understand that. And so if your signage might have said, we're going to take care of the family travel and so forth, and then a road warrior, I would bypass that because I need somebody who's hard and heavy, get me off the plane, I got to go. I mean, you understand that. And
no mistakes.
I've gone to all states, so we can have a lot of conversations. So thanks for really going over that and the questions, because this really hits home as to talking to your avatar and truly understanding what that means to the business. And you can do both. You just need to know, right?
And when Helen mentions avatar, the idea is as we're understanding the demographics and psychographics of our best customers, we want to create essentially a persona, and as she said, an avatar, a character that epitomizes the best of those demographics and psychographics. We're creating an image, so to speak, of who's our best customer. I heard an example of this recently, Chick-fil-A, which is headquartered right here in Atlanta, they've identified, they call them their, I want to make sure I get these right, they call them their Romeos, ROMEO, Romeos, retired old men eating out. That's one of their best demographics and psychographics for fast food, for Chick-fil-A. And so they've identified this persona that they say, okay, Romeo, we call him Romeo, retired old men eating out. So whenever they're coming up with a marketing plan, they say, okay, what would appeal to Romeo in terms of both the demographics of that profile and the psychographics of that profile? Retired old men eating out. What do they look for? What are they interested in? So we're going to take Natalie, let's take our last break.
Tim, I have a question before we go
please
to
go ahead.
Okay, maybe you can help us out on this, or it would be a suggestion. I hired a company a couple of months ago, which went out due to the pandemic now, but they used to do a research for every business that I was establishing about the geographic, demographic, and population around it. It would tell me who my competitors were, how the distance, the radiation around that business, what they were making, what they were looking for, and how it could give me the growth or ideas to create my business unique. Do you know any software that is available out there? Because they didn't want to give me the name so I could continue to do that.
Yeah. So Margarita, two quick things come to mind. One is the SBDC, and
Right.
Natalie and Gina can tell you more detail. They've got great access to both demographic and psychographic information.
And it's a free service.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Thank you.
on a geographic basis, whether it's by zip code or certain mile radius. So they've got access to a number of databases that have good information like that. I've also directed a number of my clients over time to hiring interns, usually marketing students from local universities, and they too have access, to great sources of information through the universities that they're able to do research very cost effectively for companies. So those would be two that come immediately to mind. I know also on the internet, of course, everything's on the internet, but there's a variety of different databases that are available. Some of them are free and some of them you pay for on the internet as well for that same type of information.
Okay, appreciate it.
Sure.
Right, and the SBDC can actually help you with that at no cost through a business advisor. So we have several subscriptions that we can pull that information from for you. And if you make an appointment with a business advisor, they can do that for you as well.
Thank you, Natalie.
It's free. No problem.
Natalie, let's take an 8-minute break if we could.
Okay, I'll set the timer.
Good. When we come back, we're going to work on your customer profile. We're back. Welcome back. So I'd like you to turn to the page in your book. It says, how well do you know your customers? How well do you know your customers? It's kind of like a pop quiz. And it says, it asks you to choose one target market. More than likely, each of you are selling into multiple target markets. A target market is a group of customers. Could be defined by geography. It could be defined by industry. Could be defined by other demographics. Choose one target market that you currently sell into and jot down on the top, how would you describe that target market? Example could be hospitals in the Metro Houston area, or senior citizens, in South Houston. That'd be a target market. So identify one target market, and then for that target market, I'd like you to identify 3 demographic factors related to this target market. Remember, demographics, individuals, age, income, job, family status, all that stuff. Demographics. And then 3 psychographic factors, 3 things that talk about why they need that product. What are these psychographics would suggest? What do they believe? What do they want? What do they need help with? psychographics. So 3 demographics, 3 psychographics of that target market. And I'll just give you a couple minutes to come up with 3 of each of these. All right, so let's see. Let's hear a couple examples. Let's see, Luis, are you there, Luis? There you are. Yes. So what target market did you choose?
Healthcare education, or employees of healthcare institutions that do education internally.
Okay, they do education internally. Okay, so what are the demographics of those institutions?
90% of our customers and people that work in that segment are female, 25 to 50, and they have a degree in marketing, communications, or nursing.
Okay, good. Those are great demographic factors. How about the psychographics? What impacts their decision to purchase?
They're more buying aspirin. They obviously need something urgent, but they need to deliver a message to their customers. They need typically the products very fast, quickly, and their decision is they hire us because we do something quickly. We're easy to deal with. Okay. They don't have to waste 3-4 days to try to get a purchase order to a bigger printer, and the product will be there next day. So
okay. So they're looking for convenience, they're looking for expertise, they're looking for ease of doing business. Very nice, very nice, okay? So think about how valuable that information is. Once we understand who our customers are in terms of the demographics and psychographics, would you agree that now for Luis and Clara, it just made it so much easier to make marketing decisions in terms of trying to impact those particular target markets by understanding both their demographics and their psychographics. Marketing decisions now get much easier. We're eliminating some of that confusion that we talked about earlier this morning about making marketing decisions by better understanding what essentially who our customers are in terms of demographics and how they think. So here's what I'd like to do. Natalie, we've got, let's see, 21, 18. Let's put everyone, let's create 6 groups. Can we do that? 6 groups?
Yes.
And what I'd like you to do is once you get into your group, I'd like for each of you to take a turn sharing, just as Luis and Clara just did, sharing your demographics of your target market, sharing the psychographics that you came up with, and you're certainly welcome to help each other with either one of those. And then talk a little bit about whether you're selling vitamins or aspirin to this target market. So Natalie, let's go ahead and break them up into 6 groups. That should give you 2 or 3 people in each group. We'll give you, again, about 8 minutes to share what you came up with, and then we'll bring you back, okay? 8 minutes. All right, welcome back. So let's hear a couple more examples of demographics and psychographics. Laura, are you there? Yep, so start with the demographics. Let's start the target market. Which target market did you choose? You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. Target market, normally Spring always finds very interesting is men from 40 to 55 years old, because they have a wide business plans, and they deal with flowers for wholesalers and for small shop flowers, and different type of channels to get the flowers to. So they don't pay that much, but they buy a high amount. So it is balanced. Yep. And the psychographic for is they want flowers to be shipped as soon as possible, all the varieties they want in one shipment, mixed different type of flowers, and mainly big amount of stamps in a box so they can get deals on logistics. The aspirin and the vitamins, as I told before, aspirin, well, flowers are for, death, illnesses, but they are mostly vitamins and expression of any type of feelings we have. And well, I think that's it.
Okay, good. Christine Hens, how about for you? Your clients, your target market is?
Okay, baby boomers.
Okay. Okay, and geographically, where are they?
So there's demographic is mostly, well, they're pet owners in the Houston, Galveston area. Mostly professional married couples nearing retirement or already retired. And I'm just guessing they're making at least $65,000 a year.
Okay.
Their psychographic is, for one reason or another, the animal's quality of life needs improvement. And they're looking for advice or options to what they have already been offered on what to do for their animal. And they prefer the convenience and the ease of having in-home care.
Okay, so convenience and knowledge, information, they're caring, they love their pets, there's an emotional connection between them and their pets. They want someone coming to their home versus taking their pet to a veterinarian. Interesting. And how about the vitamin and the aspirin? Which are they purchasing?
Well, initially when they come to me, it's aspirin they want. Later, after a little bit of education and seeing what we can do, they're calling me back for the vitamin aspect.
Yeah, interesting. Very good. So again, the idea is that we're gathering information. We're getting smarter about our customers, understanding the demographics, the psychographics of our customers, ultimately leading to making better marketing decisions, making better decisions. It's also important. So I'll give you an example. I've got a pest control business that I work with here in Atlanta, and they do mostly residential. And they've got this down to, they've identified Mary. Mary is it's a persona that they've created, that Mary, that is their target market. It's middle-aged women, working women with kids, family, nice house. They work outside of the house. So those are and pretty well educated. Those are the demographics. Psychographics is safety. They want their home to be safe from bugs and from rats and whatever else they might be getting. They're also interested in safety in terms of what chemicals might be used in their home. So they're concerned about their kids. They also they're careful about who they're allowing in their homes, because the pest control people are coming inside their homes, and they're relatively price knowledgeable. They kind of know what they should or shouldn't be paying for their pest control. And so now with that information, every time they're looking at a marketing decision, they'll ask themselves, well, what would Mary think of this? What would Mary think of this ad? What would Mary think about a price increase? What would Mary think if we added this additional service? Every marketing decision gets filtered through this person, this Mary, this avatar that they've created. And as a result, they're making better marketing decisions. And so that's why I want you all to be able to do as well. It's also important as you study your customers to understand what's called the buyer's journey. is what journey, what trip essentially does your consumer go through prior to making a purchase? And generally there are 3 steps involved in this buyer's journey. The first is awareness, is how do they hear about you? How do they become aware of you as a provider? Awareness. And it's also on their part identifying that they have a problem. I need a pest control business. I need a printer. I need a cup of coffee. Awareness. The second step in the buyer's journey generally is what's referred to as consideration. So consideration, I've now identified 3 options, 6 options, and I'm trying to figure out of those different options, which one is the best option. Consideration. So we have awareness, consideration, and the third step typically in the buyer's journey is a decision. I've got 3 different options and I'm going to pick option A. Awareness, consideration, and decision. So your job as you study your customers is to better understand each of those 3 steps in the journey. So awareness, how much time is involved in awareness, and what factors do they consider when they've determined that they have a problem? Same thing with consideration, same thing with decision. You're trying to understand through the eyes of your target market each of these 3 different steps in the buyer's journey. And then as you're employing different marketing strategies and marketing tactics, you're employing those to these 3 steps in the journey. And if your issue is awareness, we need to build awareness, then you're going to exert your marketing efforts on building awareness. If the issue is not awareness, but the issue is you're not getting considered, you're not becoming one of those 3 options, then your marketing efforts are going to go toward how do we improve that ourselves in that consideration stage. Or the issue could be decision. You're getting tons of consideration, but no one is calling you. No one is picking you. So now you're going to guide your marketing efforts towards helping people make better decisions, i.e. your company. So it's understanding the persona and then understanding that individual's journey, their trip between awareness, consideration, and making a purchasing decision. Okay. All right. So you got a lot of work to do. You got a lot of homework to do. So let's wrap up with this. Just as we have the last 2 times, we'll take a lap around the Zoom room. We'd like to hear from each of you something that you're taking away from today's session, something that you found helpful. So Melissa, we'll start with you, and John, you'll be next. What was helpful today?
Just understanding how to identify the customers and their needs, and just more of a customer awareness.
Okay, good, thank you. John, and then Luis and Clara. John, what was helpful today?
The question, I love the way you're saying doing competitive analysis using Google Alerts. I think that is a really neat tool. I've never thought about that. And I think it's a great way to be aware of our competition, and also using SBDC, which I wasn't aware of, to do the competitive analysis. So those are 2 great takeaways.
Yeah, fantastic. Luis and Clara, what was helpful today?
I really enjoyed the part of that we hire products to do the job. So when you look at from that point of view, it's easier to understand what are your competitive advantages and how to promote that specific line of business, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, understanding what job are they hiring us to do? Mike, and then Christine Nugent. Mike, what was helpful today?
Which one of us?
Mike Price, I'm sorry.
I like the focus on the search engine optimization and the content marketing. People research before they buy. So I'd like to delve into that a little more, get a better handle on that.
Yeah, what are they looking for? Christine Nugent.
For me, it was going to be the indirect competitors. I never thought of them as just anyone else they can be spending their money on or with. So really thinking about the psychoanalysis of our customers and how to really build that part out so that we can speak to them more clearly.
Good. Amy, and then Nicole, you'll be next.
Mine's kind of similar to what's already been said, but I've already built out demographics and profiles, but I didn't really think about it as having my product having a job to do and why people are, I understand the demographic, but I need to look more into that and how we have indirect competitors that I need to consider also.
Good. Nicole, and then Julie, you'll be next.
I think it's nice to know that it's okay to fail in order to succeed. I think too often we as entrepreneurs sometimes kick ourselves too often and are hard on ourselves when we do make a mistake. And it was validating to hear that. So thank you.
Yeah. And remember, little mistakes, not big mistakes, little mistakes.
Yes, of course.
One of the worst mistakes I made, I mentioned the travel agency. This was in Miami. And we decided to have a cruise night, an event where we invited our clients and prospects to come to our office and learn about different options in cruising. And I sent out an invitation where I kind of suggested almost that we were going like on a regular cruise ship, that they were going to join us, for an evening at sea. Of course, we weren't at sea. Our office was nowhere near water. People showed up with luggage. They actually thought they were going on a cruise. And that was a big mistake. They were disappointed that they weren't actually going on a cruise ship. Because again, I'd kind of positioned it like we were going on a cruise. So that was an example of we had great attendance because people all thought they were going on a cruise. But so the example of making mistakes, not being afraid to make mistakes. Julie, what was helpful today? And then Helen, you'll be next.
Sure, just validation regarding the content marketing because I'm putting a lot of effort in that area. So that made me feel like, woo. And then also the little nugget or gem of the business advisor for the competitive analysis.
Good, yeah, lots of help. Helen, and then Mike will come to you.
Sure, thank you. So it's just taking all of the elements reviewed today just to hone in on that message, talking to the avatar. So it's just what I spoke about earlier. It's, that's just spot on, and that will make us money.
Good. Mike?
Okay, this afternoon, trends in the market cycle, and how well do your customer really hit home with me today?
Okay, good. Margarita, and then Christine Hintz.
Mine was the indirect competitors, the information about SBDC, the competitive analysis that you just shared with us, and most of all, hearing the stories of everybody here because you guys are business owners or are in the same boat that I am, and that's what's now helping me grow. Thank you, guys.
Very good. And Christine, and then let's see, Angeline. Christine Hintz.
So much information. Lots of good suggestions. So I think really though, the customer journey, elucidating that for me was going to be very helpful because I've kind of struggled with how to do that on some of the previous homeworks that I was given on getting my avatar together. I didn't know how to describe that. So thank you.
Good, you're welcome. Angeline, and then Roxana.
For me, I think one of the biggest takeaways was, is your website easy to navigate? Does it inspire, answer questions, or educate? I don't know. And one of the gentlemen before said that was his homework assignment. So I agree. That's a big takeaway and one of my homework assignments as well.
Okay, good. Roxana, and then Eleanor.
I missed a little bit of class, so I was behind, but I really enjoyed the how well do you know your customers and the buyer's journey, understanding where the kink in the chain is, and so you can fix your marketing efforts.
Okay, good. Eleanor?
Yeah, so like John said earlier, I wasn't aware that the SBDC did help do competitive analyses. So that I'm definitely going to reach out about. And then as well, the customer journey from awareness, consideration to decision. So I need to map that out a lot better.
Good, good. I've been skipping around. I'm sure I missed somebody. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah,
Rick,
I-
go ahead.
so I think the big thing, I was kind of already thinking about it, so I appreciated the customer kind of profile with the target markets, and I like the competitive analysis matrix. And then I really liked the back at the beginning marketing, meaning solving customers' problems profitably.
Good. And thinking about target markets, as you're choosing target markets, a mistake that I see a lot of small businesses make, and I've made the mistake, is picking target markets that are too large. I would much rather you be a big fish in a small pond than a small fish in a big lake. And the best way I've heard it described, this was an article in Inc. magazine, they suggested, the author did, pick a target market that you feel like you can get a 25% market share within 3 years. I'll repeat that. Pick a target market, a piece of the market that you feel essentially that you can dominate. 25% market share is pretty much domination. You're top 3 in that market with whatever you're selling. Pick a target market that within 3 years you can have a 25% market share. And what that'll force you to do is to go after much smaller target markets than you might normally consider. But I think the smaller the target market, the better. All right.
Can I have a question before you leave?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
I'd like your opinion on this. For us that use a lot of social media platforms to do the marketing for our clients, and now that Facebook is doing the changes just because of the process they're going through, and Instagram, which they're linked in, what would you suggest as using as an alternative if they were to pass on the rules and regulations of what's going on?
Yeah. That's a very good question. I think for businesses, if you're doing business to business, I tend to lean more towards LinkedIn. I think that's, for me, that's a little more a better focus, and they've not had some of the issues that Facebook and Instagram have had. There's a new tool that I'm just becoming, a platform I'm becoming familiar with, called Clubhouse. It's more business to business. It's kind of a video LinkedIn that's gaining a lot of traction very, very quickly. So those are at least the first 2 that come to mind. If you're looking for a good podcast on marketing, there's a podcast called Marketing School. Every day they do about a 3-minute podcast just on different facets, primarily of digital marketing. It's two gentlemen that host it. It's called Marketing School. Neil Patel is one of the 2. And if you're looking for a really good book on marketing, I mentioned this earlier this morning when we got started, a book called Story Brand. And the author is Donald Miller. It's a great book for small business owners who are trying to get their arms around better marketing. And the premise of the book is the best way to sell any product or service is to have a great story, right? We all love great stories. We love great drama. And the idea is to create marketing around a story. And it's not a story where you're the lead in that story. Your customer is the hero of your story. So it's positioning your customer as the hero of the story, and you become their guide. You become their mentor. But it's about creating great stories to help sell more of your product or services. So it's called Story Brand. All right.
Adding to that question, so what is your opinion on how you could market to the younger generation? We're talking about between 21 and 8, which are the ones that pressure the parents that are most of the time on that social media that's not LinkedIn and anything that has to be business related.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a great answer to that. Because there's just so much. That's what do they call that? Gen Z.
Generation Z. Gen Z.
You know, they have so much more access to so much information than we ever had, which I think makes marketing difficult. I know what many of the consumer companies are doing is, utilizing influencers. using, musicians and football players and people like that to try to influence their decision making. Again, we're talking about young people, and just also trying to keep up with the different media platforms that where are they spending their time. One of the keys in marketing, once you've identified your target market, is just asking yourself the question, so where do these people hang out? And if they're older, they're hanging out at the country club, they're hanging out at church, they're hanging out at the parks, whatever. And then you want to hang out wherever your customers hang out, either virtually or physically. And I think the same thing is true with very young people, is figuring out where they're spending their time, and then trying to figure out a mechanism for approaching those same platforms, those same mediums.
Hey, Tim, do you mind if I have a comment on that? So Margarita, if you know that your ideal client has, I don't know, 2.3 kids, whatever their ages are, and if you know the psychographics of your ideal client and their kids, then sure, go to those social media platforms. But then you want to speak to, for example, does your mom, have problems with XYZ, right? Right? Or does your dad, have a golf swing that's off? I mean, you gotta really speak to them that, the kind of problem that their parents may be having. Just throwing it out as I was listening to this. Thank you.
That's very
I appreciate it.
All right, so for next week when we come back, we're going to talk about how to determine your company's competitive advantages and how to leverage those competitive advantages. What is it that makes you unique? We're also going to talk about pricing, how to establish pricing strategies. I find pricing is one of the most least understood area of marketing, and yet it might be the most important area. So we're going to talk about pricing and pricing strategies. We're also going to talk about how to evaluate your marketing efforts. How do you know what's working, what's not working, how to shift those valuable resources that you have towards where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. So how to evaluate your marketing efforts. So that'll all be next week. We'll be back next Tuesday, same time, same bat channel. Natalie, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. So as Tim mentioned, be sure you take your behavioral assessment. Make sure you book your one-on-one with Tim. We will be finishing the rest of tab or section 3 on your packet next week. And Gina will email you a reminder. You'll use the same link to log in next week as well. If you need anything, let me know or let Gina know, and we'll be glad to help you. But we hope to see you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sending an email right now to everybody, and it has the link so that you can make an appointment with the virtual appointment with one of our SBDC advisors, and they can help you with the research information, and they can assist you with the competitive analysis. They're not going to do the work for you, but they will certainly look over your shoulder and kind of help you along the way. And I'm sending that out as soon as we close off.
Yes. And also, if you visit our website, which is sbdc.uh.edu, you can book an appointment with an advisor there. You can watch all of our on-demand webinars. We have like well over 100 by now. And they all are very informative as well. So make sure you check out those and just explore our website. We have a lot of resources available for you. But that's all I've got. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.